In recent days, the news of Dianne Feinstein's death has graced the internet, and with it, we see the reaction from the corporate press, that of the people who are pro 2A, and that of the libertarians. Well, these are some fundamentally different perspectives. The corporate press lionizing someone like Dianne Feinstein for her actions about gun control and how staunch she was as an advocate for progressive activism. Well, turns out that's not something that's very popular amongst right-wingers, libertarians, and people who were traditional liberal types that have been castigated from the left, because they saw her as nothing more than a threat to their liberty, much like many of the people within the Libertarian Party do. Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump into this. This is genuinely insane. Dianne Feinstein dying out at the age of 90. Now we're just waiting on Mitch McConnell to go the way of the dinosaurs as well. Come on, Mitch, we're just waiting. So here's the deal. Dianne Feinstein died at 90 with the power of her attorney being transferred to her daughter months prior because she was so ill that she had no capacity to actually make decisions. If you want to go see a video where I'm talking about the fact that the people who run our country are nothing more than geriatric senile warlords, that will be linked right here. You can go click on it, put it in another tab, and watch it before this or afterwards. If you do, thank you very much. Either way, let's go ahead and jump into this. This is genuinely insane. I cannot believe the reaction from the corporate press. Just kidding, I absolutely can. Acting like someone who is pushing the establishment narrative is nothing more than a hero in the end. But the thing that I really love is seeing the visceral reaction from so many people that are anti-establishment figures. Let's go ahead and jump into this. From the smear merchants in NBC News, we see they're going to be lionizing a tyrant. Senator Dianne Feinstein, a trailblazer in U.S. politics and the longest-serving woman in the Senate, dies at 90. Feinstein, elected in 1992, was a vocal gun control advocate who sought common ground with Republicans, sometimes frustrating her more liberal colleagues. And this idea that Dianne Feinstein was someone who really came to the middle to really help with the ideal of coming to the moderate consensus, I would argue is total bullshit. Moving on. Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat from California, a vocal advocate of gun control measures who was known for trying to find common sense ground with Republicans during her 3 decades in the Senate, has died. Her office has confirmed this on Friday. She was 90 years old. 90 years old and completely aloof. She was not there mentally. She's completely gone, much like Joe Biden. And it's genuinely sad because this is what we saw was a sundowning old woman, and this is someone who should have been spending time with her daughter and her grandchildren and the rest of her family. But no, the establishment was propping her up on marionette strings so that they could go ahead and get every single vote that they needed on every single bill that was pushed. It's genuinely despicable. Would you be okay with someone doing this to an elderly person that you love? No, of course not. And that should really show the despotic nature of the people who are connected and attached to the families that are in power when it comes to government and politics. The fact that they would allow something like this to happen and not speak up really should speak volumes. Senator Feinstein never backed away from a fight for what was just and right, and at this time she was always willing to work with anyone, even those she disagreed with, even if it meant bettering the lives of Californians or bettering our nation. And I give this, the fact that you're willing to have conversations with your opposition, which we clearly see is not really a thing that's happening now, it's just nothing more than smear being targeted at the opposite side. I really give credit to the fact that this is what politics used to be, was actually having these cordial interactions, and Dianne Feinstein was very much a part of that ethos when she was alive. Moving on. Her chief of staff, Samuel James, said in a statement that Feinstein's office did not share the cause of death because she'd been experiencing rapidly declining health in recent months. And anyone that was watching any of the footage of Dianne Feinstein over the past year, or the past couple years, I would say, has really seen the toll that's been taken on her. Moving on, there are few women who can be called senator, chairman, mayor, wife, mom, grandmother. And that's truly a call. I'll give her that. But I'd argue something like senator, mayor shouldn't be titles that should realistically exist, but that's a conversation for a different day. I'm not going to go on that tirade. Senator Feinstein was a force of nature who made an incredible impact on our country and her home state. Feinstein, the oldest member of the Senate, was the longest-serving female senator and the longest-serving senator for California, announced in February that she planned to retire at the end of 2024 when her term was up. She faced calls for her registration over concerns about her health. And this is something that has happened for a long time. People were saying that Dianne Feinstein needed to resign, and it wasn't just for calls about her health, it was also with talks about her age. In San Francisco, she showed enormous poise and courage in the wake of tragedy and became a powerful voice for American values. Serving in the Senate together for more than 15 years, I had a front row seat at what Dianne was able to accomplish, President Joe Biden said in a statement. Dianne made her mark on everything from national security to the environment to protecting civil liberties. Yeah, protecting civil liberties like going after your Second Amendment rights. She's made history in many ways, and our country will benefit from her legacy for generations. Biden ordered flags to be lowered at the White House to honor Feinstein. Feinstein's Senate colleagues paid tribute on Friday on the Senate floor, whereas her seat was covered by black cloth. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called Feinstein one of the most amazing people who ever graced the Senate floor, who ever graced the country. Bullshit! She was smart, she was strong, she was brave, he added. She was compassionate, but maybe the trait that stood out most was all her integrity. Her integrity was a diamond. Attempting not to facepalm. After Feinstein missed votes in late February, her spokesperson said on March 1st, the senator in California this week dealing with a health matter and hopes to return to Washington soon. She last voted on Thursday morning, according to the website that tracks Senate votes. So yes, Dianne Feinstein, completely mentally gone, decimated by her illness, had apparently voted that morning. Do you actually believe it was her that voted? Honestly? Because I certainly don't. The California Democrat was a vocal advocate of gun control measures, championing the assault weapons ban that then-President Bill Clinton signed in 1994, pushing the restrictive laws since the ban's expiration in 2004. She was also someone who pushed Joe Biden's crime bill that was architected in 1994 as well. What we see is, as a chairwoman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Feinstein led a multi-year review of the CIA's detention and interrogation program developed after September 11, 2001's terrorist attacks, which led to a legislation barring the use of methods of torture. So Dianne Feinstein oversaw the metrics of torture that we were using, which were then banned in the future. Yeah, this is such a great person that should be lionized and treated like an absolute hero. Let's go ahead and jump into Twitter so we can go ahead and see the reaction from the more libertarian-leaning people. They will not be nice. They will be tarring and feathering this politician. Make sure you are cyberbullying government officials as we do. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So, if you've been watching my videos recently, you've heard me use the phrase tar and feather a couple times. And it's because the historical context of how this has been used and why it was used has been on my mind a lot as of late. Now on to something that certainly has no correlation with that whatsoever. Joshua Smith from Break the Cycle tweets, brave Americans used to tar, feather, and mock petty tyrants trying to control them. Now they let them sit in office for 40 plus years and then celebrate them as an icon when they die. I could not sing the sentiments of this statement enough. We're going to move on to a clip of Dianne Feinstein, also posted by Joshua. And what I said to this was in response, I said, if I speak, Twitter will suspend me. And that is exactly how I feel when I'm talking about people like this on YouTube, when I know I absolutely have to bite my tongue to a degree, because this woman is burning in hell, and I have zero sympathies for that fact. And if anyone wants to comment and talk about the fact of how awful it is that I said that, well, don't you worry, I'll get into the fact of how awful it is that the policies she stood for got how many people killed. And the fact that she also stood for so many policies as a politician that would violate your rights and strip you of your capacity to defend yourself and have the right to self-defense with firearms. Meanwhile, this person, her entire time in politics, has been defended by armed guards, security officers, with firearms. I don't respect these people, nor care when the Grim Reaper takes them to the afterlife with which they burn. Let's go ahead and get into this clip.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it. I could not do that. The votes weren't here.
So, she said if she could have gotten the 51 votes in the Senate, she would have stripped you of your Second Amendment rights. Well, here's the deal. How many millions of Americans are not okay with that? Well, she doesn't care, and this is why it's okay when you sit there and you lambaste and talk shit about petty tyrants and cyberbully government officials online, because realistically, these people deserve it. I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, these are the greatest people who sat there, and truly, her courage and her nobility was hard as diamond, as Chuck Schumer said. Chuck Schumer can go the way of Dianne Feinstein, as I'm praying Mitch McConnell once does soon. Anyways, moving on to Scott Ritter. Man, this is quite fascinating and another perfect reason of why someone like Dianne Feinstein has blood on her hands. I met Senator Dianne Feinstein once. It was the lead up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. She had just recently been assigned to the Senate Select Committee of Intelligence in 2001, and it was in the capacity that she had a senior staffer from the committee ask me to come to Washington, D.C. to brief her on the Iraq WMD and the allegations being made by the Bush administration that the Iraq continued to possess them. No, I misread that. Okay. We met in a secure conference room in the Capitol building, me, the senator, and half a dozen staffers and aides. It was polite, professional affair, with the senator asking questions and taking notes. Eventually, she confronted me. Your position is causing us some difficulty. You are making the U.S. look bad in the eyes of the world. I replied that my analysis and the underlying facts were rock solid, something she agreed with. I said that while I knew she couldn't reveal sensitive intelligence, if she could look me in the eye and say she had unequivocally seen proof that Iraq had retained WMDs, I'd shut up and go away. She looked me right in the retina and then told me. I have seen no such intelligence, she replied. She thanked me for the briefing and said it provided her with food for thought. On October 11th, 2002, Senator Feinstein voted in favor of the resolution authorizing the war with Iraq. Later, she had been misled by the Bush administration and bad intelligence. I will forever know Senator Feinstein as someone who had been empowered by the truth and lacked the moral courage to act on it. The bloods of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis stains her soul. I hope when she stands in judgment before her maker, she is punished accordingly. And I could not agree more with these sentiments. Moving on, we're going to have a tweet from Razorfish, and if you are not following Razorfish both on Twitter and on YouTube, my goodness, please go give him a follow. If you want to understand the history of communism and its infiltration throughout Hollywood, he has a video called Hollywood Was Always Red. He has videos talking about the history of Walt Disney and how they've completely gone after Disney and completely destroyed his name after he was someone who was a fervent anti-communist figure, but what they did was they tarred him with the brush of anti-Semitism. And with that, they were able to completely destroy his legacy. And well, what do we see now? Everyone that knows anything about anything when it comes to Walt Disney, the first thing they always bring up about his history is, isn't he an anti-Semite? Please go look at that video from Razorfist. It will provide plenty of context behind the machinations of what was going on in Hollywood with the CSU, with the writers' strike, with the writers' unions, and all of that. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Dianne Feinstein, architect of the assault weapons ban, has finally joined the thousands of victims she helped create at Jonestown. And if you're not aware of what Jonestown is, it was a cult suicide, and it was a mass suicide. And people like Dianne Feinstein absolutely dropped the ball. The horrific scene in the jungle clearing could have been avoided. Thousands of miles north, for years leading up to Jonestown, San Francisco officials and journalists had looked the other way while Jones acted as a law unto himself. So what if he abused children, sodomized a follower, tortured and held temple members at gunpoint, defrauded the government and people of welfare and social security checks? He believed in socialism, and so do we. That was the ends justifying the means attitude that enabled Jim Jones to commit criminal acts in San Francisco with impunity. The people who should have stopped him instead encouraged him. San Francisco's heavy hitters Dianne Feinstein, and then it goes on to list multiple names, all supported Jones and milk lobbying on his behalf even after he and his followers had fled to the jungles of Ghana, precisely due to the clear Marxist ideology of the People's Church. And this is the thing. This is the major problem when you have people that are so ideologically captured that they are willing to commit heinous actions or allow other people to commit heinous actions, all on the principle that, well, they share our beliefs. And you saw this happen in mass when you had people like Walter Duranty not reporting on the travesties of what was going on in the Soviet Union during the time of the control of Soviet expansion when it came to the Soviet blocs. And what happened was Walter Duranty went to the Soviet Union and he saw all of the travesty of what was happening, the suffering, the starvation, and he came back and he wrote a story, and he wrote nothing more than good sentiments about the Soviet Union and the communists because he himself was a communist. And what did he say? He said, the Russians are not starving, they're merely tightening their belts. And if you don't have food and you have to tighten your belt because of it, it's because you are starving. And this is another example of why every single person should never trust the government, politicians, nor the journalists, and should treat them as nothing more than tobacco executives that are trying to peddle you poison. This is an overhead shot of all of the mass victims from Jonestown. I will not be leaving that on screen for long. Moving on to Jo Jorgensen. Jo Jorgensen ran for the president under the banner of the Libertarian Party in 2020, and it was the greatest blunders I have seen for the Libertarian Party, and it is exactly why the Mises Caucus ended up taking over the party, was because people like this were at the helm of what was supposed to be the anti-government perspective in politics. Joe Jorgensen says, Feinstein, a 45-year-old career politician, had started when she was elected mayor of San Francisco in 1978. At 59, she was elected senator and held that position for over 3 decades. To honor her long career, I asked Democrats to nominate someone who fits the demographic of Californians to represent them fully. That is all she has to say about this absolute tyrant. And here we see Dave versus Goliath. Go give him a follow on Twitter. Absolutely fantastic. Your administration for the regime, your admiration for the regime is disgusting. I'm embarrassed that I voted for you. 100%. And here we see the Mises Caucus in response, and this is who took over the Libertarian Party. Feinstein was a blood-drenched tyrant who killed and opposed innocents all over the world. She was a career criminal and a murderer by proxy. You're thinking such a monster should be honored with demographic representation just enforces how badly the Reno Reset was needed. And the Reno Reset is talking about what happened when there was a mass meeting of the Libertarian Party in Reno to get all of the votes for all of the delegates to effectively overthrow the people that were helming the Libertarian Party at the time, which the Mises Caucus then took over, and now they are the ones who are pushing the fact of Michael Rectenwald running for president. I will admit, as someone who was really happy with what was going on with the Mises Caucus, I really do believe they have somewhat dropped the ball in recent months, and it has been quite annoying. Dave Smith not running for president was quite a disappointment, although I understand why, and I do believe his family is far more important than some silly run for president, but it was something that was really pushed out there as a really, really strong thing that was going to be a fundamental backing behind the Mises Caucus, and it was something so many people that believe in liberty and followed the Libertarian Party really wanted to happen, and so many people that actually joined the Libertarian Party after the Mises Caucus took over wanted to happen, and it just didn't. And it's honestly quite disappointing. Moving on, though, we're going to go ahead and jump into the quote tweets. First from Dave Smith, it says, "Please go away." Yeah, just go away. Moving on to Captain Ancapistan, what an absolute disgrace to libertarianism. Which is worse, her respect for a corrupt politician or the woke nonsense at the end? I sincerely regret voting for her. Luckily, my vote doesn't matter. Another one from Dave versus Goliath. Any libertarian who thinks the Reno Reset was all for naught need only be reminded that this was our standard bearer. Absolutely couldn't agree more. And then on to Karen Ann Harlos, and we'll move on. She says, the fuck? I don't think libertarians should be saying or honoring in any respect. This is not at all enough of a level to be respected. Oof. And I couldn't agree more. Moving on, we're going to see the Babylon Bee. Senator Feinstein's death not expected to affect re-election campaign. And, man, Babylon Bee, absolutely fantastic. If there's anyone I could recommend as a funny follow, it's them. The Babylon Bee actually being the starter of what caused Elon Musk to buy Twitter was because they got banned. All right. Moving on, Phoenix Ammunition, and this is who I buy my ammo from because Phoenix Ammunition is fucking fantastic, and I love these guys. So it says, to celebrate the death of Senator Feinstein, we're offering free shipping on ammunition to California customers today through October 31st. Simply select Good Riddance Diane at checkout. Evil authoritarians should be mocked in death, and it's the same as they are in life. No quarter. And what we see here is, this is a bag of ammo, and it has a picture of Dianne Feinstein on it, and it says, R.I.P. Dianne Feinstein, LOL, bye bitch. R.I.P. Bozo, you will not be missed. Okay, and here we see, this is a video, and it says, first bag out of the printer this morning. This is something that Phoenix Ammunition does consistently with stuff like this, and it is wonderful. They also have questions that they'll sometimes ask you, and if you don't answer them correctly, they will redirect you to another site or to a government website, so you can go get a proper understanding on the laws that you're voting on. It's really good. I genuinely love this website. This guy who runs this company has been on Timcast multiple times. He's fantastic. Let's go ahead and play this. And so here you see, it's literally just the ammo production. It's about to drop the bag. I love this. It's genuinely hilarious in my eyes, and anyone's going to sit there and moralize to me, oh, well, you're sitting there talking about the fact of this person who just died. I can't believe it. This is absolutely awful. I bring you back to this comment from Scott Ritter, where he mentions the fact that he told her about what was going on with the information in Iraq. There were no WMDs, and she still voted for the fact of what was going on with the invasion. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. That's all I've got for this. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Mock petty tyrants and government officials at every turn. They deserve to be disrespected at every single point of interaction that they have in civil society. That's all I've got. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Stay lovely, stay great. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Peace out.